You are standing at your kitchen window with your coffee. The feeder is full. There are 6 birds on it or near it, a pair of house finches on the lower perches, a chickadee waiting on the branch just above, 2 dark-eyed juncos foraging beneath for fallen seed, a white-breasted nuthatch working its way down the trunk of the oak at the edge of the yard. It is an ordinary morning. Then it isn't. In less than a second, a Cooper's hawk folds its wings and drops out of the sky and hits your feeder at 35 miles per hour. There is an explosion of birds in every direction, feathers, a sound like a fist hitting a pillow. And then the yard is empty. The feeder is swaying. The hawk is gone. One bird is not. The whole event lasted about as long as it takes you to blink twice. You didn't understand what you saw. You didn't have time to. And the birds that flew, every single one of them, were already 40 feet away before your brain had finished processing the shape of the hawk. What just happened in that yard, and what happens in the 60 seconds after in the days that follow, is one of the most precisely choreographed sequences in backyard ecology. It involves split-second neurology, alarm systems that move faster than sound, and a set of behavioral consequences that will reshape the way every bird in your yard uses your feeder for the rest of the week. Welcome back to Wild Bird Whisper. Subscribe before you leave, because what you're about to understand is not just about hawks. It is about how every bird at your feeder right now is operating every morning in a state of threat awareness you cannot see and have probably never thought about. Stay until the end, because the last thing we cover explains why your feeder can go completely quiet for 5 days after a single strike, and what that silence actually means about how birds think about risk. Let's start with the half second before it happens. Number 1, the birds knew before you did. This is the part most people miss entirely, because in the story you tell yourself, the hawk comes first. It came out of nowhere. It was so fast, you didn't see it coming. But the birds did. Not all of them, not with enough time for every bird to escape. But a hawk approaching a feeder does not arrive without a signature. It arrives in a signal that birds have been reading and responding to for millions of years. There is a specific alarm call in the chickadee's vocabulary reserved for aerial predators. It is not the familiar chickadee call that most people know. That call is for ground-level threats: cats, squirrels, stationary predators below eye level. The aerial alarm is different. It is a thin, high-pitched CE, a single short note of nearly pure tone. It is designed to be directionally ambiguous, hard to trace, hard for the hawk to locate the sender of, and it propagates through the yard at the speed of sound in every direction at once. Researchers at Cornell and the University of Montana have documented this call system in careful detail. The thin CE note is not just understood by other chickadees. Nuthatches respond to it. Titmice respond to it. Dark-eyed juncos respond to it. House finches respond to it. It is a cross-species broadcast, a shared aerial alarm signal understood by virtually every bird in your yard, regardless of species, a communication infrastructure that evolved because every bird benefits from every other bird's detection ability. Here is the problem. The call moves at 1,100 feet per second. The Cooper's hawk moves at 50. The warning has a significant head start, but the hawk does not approach in a straight line from a long distance. It stoops from a tree line or a roof line that may be only 60 or 70 feet from the feeder. From the moment a bird detects it to the moment of impact, the window may be under a second. For some birds at the feeder that morning, the warning arrives simultaneously with the hawk. For others, a fraction of a second earlier is exactly enough. The juncos foraging on the ground flush first. They are beneath the feeder, exposed, and they respond as much to the hawk's shadow crossing the yard and to ground vibration as to the alarm call itself. The chickadee on the branch above the feeder launches sideways, not upward. Horizontal flight into cover is faster than ascending flight. The house finches on the feeder have the worst position. They are at the center of the target zone, perched, momentarily stationary, and the Cooper's hawk chose this feeder precisely because a bird on a perch offers a predictable point of contact. Not all of them make it. Number 2, what happens in the first 10 seconds? A Cooper's hawk hunting a feeder is not going for a glancing blow. It arrives with talons extended, and it uses the full force of the stoop to drive the prey into the feeder structure. The ground, or the air, depending on which gives it the firmest grip. The grip pressure is approximately 25 to 30 pounds per square inch. For a house finch weighing under 1.5 ounces, the force of that contact is enough to kill immediately or within seconds. What most people see at this point is the hawk on the ground mantling, wings spread wide over the kill, back hunched, head low. This mantling posture has two functions. It conceals the prey from other aerial predators and competing raptors, and it gives the hawk a moment to stabilize, assess, and control the prey before making the next decision. If the bird is still alive when the hawk lands, the hawk uses a cervical bite to the back of the neck to sever the spinal cord. This takes seconds. By the time most people watching from the window have registered what they're looking at, it is already over. What happens next depends on the hawk and the yard. In most cases, a Cooper's hawk will leave your feeder entirely, carrying the prey in its talons to a plucking post, a specific branch or fence rail it uses repeatedly, sometimes hundreds of yards away from your yard. It will pluck and eat there. In some cases, if the yard is enclosed and the hawk feels secure, it begins plucking on the ground immediately. Either way, the physical evidence vanishes quickly. Within 10 minutes, there may be nothing left at your feeder except a loose scatter of feathers and the impression of something having happened. The hawk is gone. The prey is gone. And the yard, to anyone arriving now who didn't see it, looks like nothing occurred at all. The predation event is over in under 60 seconds. The behavioral consequences for every other bird are not. Number 3, what the surviving birds do immediately after. The birds that escaped the strike did not fly randomly. They flew to cover, not a nearby open branch, not the top of the fence, the interior of the nearest dense shrub, the back of the arborvitae hedge, the cavity in the oak. Cover that removes them from sight in every direction, and once inside that cover, they go still. This stillness is specific and deliberate. It is not rest. It is a documented state called post-predation behavioral suppression, during which the bird reduces movement, reduces vocalization, and reduces conspicuousness across every sensory channel simultaneously. It is doing everything it can to register as nothing. Research on post-predation freeze behavior in mixed species flocks documents suppression periods ranging from 4 to 22 minutes, following a successful hawk strike in the immediate area. The duration depends on species, the individual bird's prior experience with predation events, and critically, whether or not the hawk is still visible in the yard. A hawk that lingers is a hawk that keeps the freeze active. A hawk that disappears allows the freeze to begin dissolving earlier. During this period, the birds are not fully silent. The thin sea calls may continue at very low amplitude, barely audible from your window. Information is still moving laterally through the group. But no bird returns to the feeder, no bird forages openly. They are waiting inside the cover, monitoring. The yard looks empty. It is not. Number 4, why your feeder goes quiet for days. This is the part that surprises most people and the part that has been studied more carefully in recent years than nearly any other aspect of feeder bird behavior. A single successful hawk strike does not just scatter the birds present at that moment. It updates the risk map of your yard for every bird that witnessed it or was close enough to receive the alarm calls. Studies measuring feeder use following Cooper's hawk strikes document a consistent pattern. In the 24 hours immediately following a strike at a feeder, use by small songbirds drops by 40 to 87%, depending on feeder placement and habitat. Not a brief disruption before things normalize. A multi-day behavioral shift during which the birds are actively recalibrating their assessment of that specific location. Your feeder is now a flagged site, not permanently. Birds cannot afford to avoid a reliable food source indefinitely during winter. But in the short term, the energy calculation that governs every feeder visit has changed. The benefit of the seed has to be weighed against an elevated, estimated probability of predation at that specific spot at this time of year, given what was just directly observed there. This is not fear in the abstract. It is evidence-based risk adjustment. Some birds return within hours. Typically the bolder, more dominant individuals, often males, often the birds highest in the local hierarchy, who have the most to gain from fast re-access to the food source. Others will not return for 3 to 5 days. During this period, you will see shorter visits, more scanning between feeding bouts, and a marked increase in the number of birds that take a single seed and immediately retreat to cover, rather than remaining at the feeder. Eat and disappear. Eat and disappear. They are not being cautious for nothing. They are being cautious because one visit to that feeder recently ended with a bird taken from exactly that spot. Their behavior is exactly as rational as the information they have. Number 5, the hawk will be back, and the birds know that too. Cooper's hawks are not random hunters drifting through unfamiliar territory. They are route-based, habitual hunters that develop specific sequences for specific productive locations. A feeder that produced a successful kill is a feeder that has been logged. A Cooper's hawk hunting a suburban territory may return to the same feeder site multiple times per week during fall and winter, varying approach direction and time of day, specifically because variation is the strategy that prevents prey from fully habituating to a single pattern. This is not conscious strategy. It is evolved behavioral flexibility. Hawks that vary their approach angles catch more prey than hawks that don't, and that advantage has been selected for over generations. What it means for your yard is this. A feeder that was struck once is a feeder of elevated interest to the hawk that struck it. The site has a documented return on investment. It will be revisited. What the feeder birds are doing during the quiet days after a strike is exactly what you would do if something dangerous had happened in a room you walked through every day. You would walk through it differently for a while. You would move faster. You would look at the corners. You would not fully relax until enough ordinary days had passed to rebuild a track record of safety in that space. That is what the juncos are doing from the hedge. That is what the finches are doing from the upper branches. That is what the chickadee is doing from the hollow in the oak. They are watching the feeder from a distance, accumulating evidence, waiting for the location to earn back the level of assessed safety it had before the morning. Everything changed. And it will, if the hawk does not return visibly. If enough uneventful visits pass, the behavior normalizes. The juncos linger again. The finches sit longer. The chickadee stops scanning every few seconds and goes back to feeding like it means it. The yard will look exactly like it always did. Until the next time. The next time a Cooper's hawk appears above your roofline, the birds on your feeder will have the same fraction of a second window they always have. The thin sea will go out. Some will make it. Some won't. What you're watching on an ordinary morning at your feeder is not a peaceful scene. It is a group of animals operating near the edge of their perceptual and physical limits, reading every shadow and every sound and every faint note from the chickadee overhead, and making a continuous calculation about whether being here is worth the risk. They stay because the seed is worth it, because the energy they gain outweighs the risk they have calculated from everything available to them. And because that calculation has been running for a very long time, long enough to produce an animal that can read a hawk's shadow, send an alarm at the speed of sound and clear a feeder before you've finished processing what you saw. The feeder looks peaceful from your side of the window. It is something else entirely from inside it. Tell me in the comments, have you ever watched a hawk hit your feeder? What did you see and how long did it take before the birds came back? I want to hear about it. I read everyone. I'll see you in the next one.